Hey ghouls, Terror Krueger, the sweetest psychopath you'll ever meet, and welcome back to my channel. Well, welcome back, ghouls. I am excited to be back with today's video. I took a little break unintentionally. I've never kind of had this much of a gap in between videos, although like 3 weeks ago now, I actually had to get some dental work done. I broke the very back tooth of mine, and oh my god, I've never been in such pain in my entire life. And I've had cosmetic work done, tattoos, I've had severe injuries before, but oh my god, nothing like this has ever hurt as much as this had before. I was like in so much pain I could barely like lift my head up to get my phone to like look for a dentist to get to have immediately to like get immediate work done. I never want to go through that again. It was awful. And then last week I was a little busy. I did a show. It was super fun. I am so happy that I got to work with such amazing people at such an amazing event. It was like a ghost tour / drag show, and I had so much fun there. The show sold out. I was super excited about that. It was so awesome to see all these people come out and show support. It was super fun. And then I had a photo shoot. We did a very Catwoman inspired like look. If you follow me on Instagram, you may have seen all that. So yeah, last week was fun. 2 weeks before that, I was completely dead. But we are back today, and we are going to go over another true crime case. Now, in the time where I've not been uploading, I have been going and looking through cases. I've had friends suggest them to me that are really interesting that I will be covering pretty soon on here. But I actually came across this one just last night as I was gathering information for another one. And when I saw this one, it just like, wow, this one is super interesting. I need to talk about this one today. So we are gonna go over the case of Richard Chase, also known as the Vampire of Sacramento. Now, this guy is fucking sick. His crimes were, it gets crazy. So trigger warning now if you are sensitive to anything, because this guy did more than just murder, and we are gonna go ahead and dive into that today. Real quick, inappropriate, on an unrelated note, when I was looking through all the photos and stuff, getting like information together, he slightly resembles a really close friend of mine. And me and my friends have this joke that this friend of ours is a serial killer, because I swear this guy is like the nicest, sweetest person you've ever met. And we always joke because he is so nice that he's like secretly a serial killer, and that one day it's gonna all come out and we're gonna find out this horrible secret of his. But yeah, like I just came across this one photo of him, and like I did a double take, like what the fuck. I was like, wow, he kind of slightly looks like this friend of mine. But in this case, unlike my friend, Richard Chase is not at all a sweet or nice person at all. He is one of the sickest people I've actually ever read about. So, with all that said, let's jump in today's case. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I feel like I've been gone for 3 weeks and I forgot how to do this, so forgive me. Also, do you like this new bow? I made this just the other day. I went like just on a rampage buying a ton of fabric and like making all these cute bows, bitch. I always got a bow on. And anyways, let's jump into today's case. So Richard Trenton Chase was born on May 23rd of 1950 in Sacramento, California. California, I said that weird. Not too much is known about his childhood, except that it wasn't great at all. It is said to believe that his father and his mother were extremely abusive towards him, maybe neglectful. He very early on showed signs of what they say most serial killers show, or at least people who grow up to have very violent tendencies. They say most people have 2. He had all 3, and that includes setting fires, torturing small animals, and bedwetting. Now, he also, by the age of 10, was experimenting in drugs, I believe. He smoked a lot of weed, but also dipped into LSD. But he also suffered from, later on we find out, schizophrenia, and he's a hypochondriac. So all that mixed together is just not at all like, the recipe for a normal, sane person. Now, not knocking anybody with like any mental disability. Not everyone who suffers from these are a psychopath, a murderer, a cannibal, a rapist. In his case, he was. So, he also like It is said to believe too, like in high school growing up, he had a few girlfriends but never could like maintain a stable relationship. Like anytime they were trying to get intimate, he could never hold an erection. And later on, a psychiatrist said that the reason why he probably wasn't able to like, you know, be aroused was due to his mental illness or some other shit like that. So in his teen years, he was becoming more and more like unstable, and it was hard for his parents to control him. So it is said that his father did kick him out of the house, which was not like at all a good case, because now he was unsupervised and he was unmanaged, you know, with his mental illness. So he started to use drugs and drink alcohol more. But in cases where people have like some mental disorders, sometimes this can heighten something, whatever's wrong with him. And in this case, it definitely did. Like I said, he had hypochondria, and he believed that the Nazis and aliens like UFOs were working together, and that they stole his pulmonary artery, which is in the heart, and that his heart was shrinking, and that also his blood was turning to dust, and that also the bones in the back of his head had come apart and were reshaping. So in that case, he had like shaved his head to like keep an eye on all that shit and keep them like where they're supposed to be, I guess. But this was just due to his schizophrenia and hypochondria. So with all that, he in his head came up with is if he killed all these animals, he would go out, catch rabbits, cats, dogs, he'd kill them, and he would make like these blood smoothies. He would even cut open the animals and pour Coke, like Coca-Cola, into the animals, and he would drink it, thinking that this was going to stop his heart from shrinking and his blood from turning into powder. I don't know where these people come up with some shit, but I have someone in my family who isn't as bizarre as this, at least hopefully they don't get to that point, but they have some outlandish fucking like thoughts that pop up into their head. You know, my whole life growing up with this person, so I was used to this kind of like weird behavior. Of course, as a child, it was like odd because they would tell me things and I would be like, what the fuck are they talking about? They said there was these robot dogs that were talking to us and telling us to do things, you know, bizarre shit. You know, bizarre shit. This person has been able to function and be somewhat of a normal person, but let's just keep our fingers crossed that they maintain a healthy path on life. Anyways, back into Richard's case. So when he was 25 years old, he actually got blood poisoning because he captured some rabbits, killed them, took their blood out, and injected himself with it, which obviously made him sick and developed this blood poisoning. So he was taken to the hospital and then admitted into a psych ward, which he actually got the nickname there Dracula because at one point in his like room, two birds got too close to the window and he grabbed them and like just tore them apart and started like drinking their blood. So the staff there kind of like, you know, kind of freaked out about that and gave him the nickname Dracula. It also said that when he had first moved out on his own, he moved in with a bunch of roommates, and they said that it was just like unlivable with them. He would just be walking around naked. He would be like just doing drugs and just being his weird old self. So it got to the point where they asked him to move out and he refused. So they had no other option but to move out themselves. Now imagine being around someone that fucking crazy all the time. Like, I honestly, I would have done the same thing. I would have just got my shit and got the hell out of there too. I wouldn't stick around. Also, like I said, because of all his weird shit he would have in his head, he kind of just stopped taking care of his own body at that point too. Like he wouldn't really eat, so he dropped a lot of weight. He also just stopped bathing and just was disgusting. Like, not to be rude, but I mean, he's disgusting. Like, let's not forget what we're about to get into what he did here. So while his time in the psych ward is when he was finally diagnosed with schizophrenia, and the doctors kind of put together a regimen of medications for him that seemed to be helping, and he was actually becoming more of like, you know, a rational thinking person, to the point where he was actually allowed to be released because he was no longer a threat to others or himself, and he was sent back into his mother's care. Unfortunately, for whatever fucking reason, his mother decided that she wanted to wean him off the medication, that she didn't want him taking this anymore. And to think like, you grew up with this person, you saw how he was turning out to the point that you kicked him out because of how he was behaving, and then you see that he was diagnosed with schizophrenia and was given medication, and it seemed to be helping, but she decided to wean him off of it, and he just went back into his old ways. Now I get this is a different time. It was like the 70s. Who knows what she was thinking or what she thought was doing was best for her son? I don't know. But Richard did stay with her up until a point where he eventually, like I said, went back to his old ways and started thinking irrational again, and he moved out because he said his mother was slowly poisoning him and he needed to escape. This house is when he moved into the apartment with those roommates who he creeped out. He did return home one more time. He just went to his mother's house, knocked on the door, and as she opened the door, he kind of just like stuck this dead cat in her face, dropped it to the floor, and like ripped it open with his bare hand and started just screaming and rubbing the blood like all over him. At this point, his mother just backed into the house and closed the door on him and did nothing. Now, I honestly, his mother's a piece of shit. Like, honestly, I feel his mother's like to blame for a lot of like what happened. Like, if she didn't take him off the meds, imagine like he could have lived a normal life and not hurt so many people that he did. It's fucked up to think, just like, goddamn, it's like, what would have happened if, like, you know, the what if. But also around this time is when he was discovered by police walking around the lake just covered in blood. And when the cops stopped him and checked his car, he was arrested. And upon the search, they did find a bucket of blood. So of course the cops are like, what the fuck is this? So they took the blood to get tested, and it came back that it was cow's blood. So he was released again because, I mean, yeah, what the fuck he was doing was crazy and disturbing, but because it was cow's blood and not human blood, there was really nothing they could do to hold him there. So once again, he was released. This was when he started to really go all the way fucking bizarre. So, you know, like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with vampires, you know that usually vampires cannot come into your home unless you invite them in. So just like many other crazy people, Richard took it upon himself to alter the rules in a way that worked out for him. You know, most crazy delusional people do this. So he thought that if he were to walk up to your house and your door was locked, that means he was not invited in. But if he were to walk up to your house and your door was unlocked, that was an invitation that he could walk inside. Now, right away when I heard that shit, that's why by habit for my whole life, I've always locked the door behind me no matter where I'm going, in or out. Like, even if it's just to get something real quick, I'm that paranoid. I lock everything all the time. So this kind of gave Richard, I don't know, well, so at one point, he did break into a house. The door was left open, and it belonged to a young couple who had just had a baby. Now, Richard, like, luckily these people were not home at the time, so Richard kind of just walked around their house, just kind of messed everything up. What he did do that was bizarre was he opened the drawer to where, like, they had all the baby clothes, and he urinated inside of that, and then he took a shit on the baby's bed. Now, during all this, the family showed up. The husband like confronted him and almost kicked his ass, but Richard ran out and got away. But so Christmas time comes around, and yet again he tries to connect with his mother. She says she wants nothing to do with him and does not want him coming home for the holidays. So of course this just sets him off in a rage, and his mental status just completely goes off the hook here. On December 29th of 1977, Richard decided to take his gun and go driving around, and he came across Ambrose Griffin, who was a 51-year-old father of 2. He was out on the side of the road, assuming outside the house. He was helping his wife bring in groceries when Richard just pulled up and shot him in the chest, killing him. Now, he got away with this. I don't know if, like, they didn't see him do it, or they couldn't identify him, but Richard got away with this, and this kind of just left to him in his mind to like challenge him to see how far he can take this and what he could do next. And again, this next one, I'm gonna have to guys warn you, if you are triggered by some very violent acts, skip over this video. So on January 23rd of 1978, he broke into the house of Teresa Wallen, who was 3 months pregnant at the time. She was shot in the head, I believe, twice. He then decided to have sex with her corpse. He then was stabbing her multiple times while raping the corpse. He then cut off one of her nipples and drank her blood. He also cut her open to take some of her organs out. And then before he left, just to be even more disgusting, he took dog feces from her yard and shoved them down her throat and then left the house. And just a few days later, on January 27th, he broke into the home of Evelyn Meredith, who at the time was in the bathtub, and had her friend Danny Meredith over, who was keeping an eye on her son Jason and her 22-month-old nephew David. The minute he got into the house, he shot David right in the face. He also then went into the bathtub, shot Evelyn, killed her, and then he took her corpse into the bedroom where he again performed necrophilia. He then started to mutilate her and took some of her organs to later consume. He also did kill her son Jason, and what stopped him and what made him leave the house was because there was a knock on the door, who happened to be a little girl who was actually there looking for Jason to come out and play. When he heard the knocking on the door, it scared him and he took off, and he took 22-month-old David with him. I believe it was a couple months later that David's corpse was found in a box dumped behind a church with his head missing, because Robert Chase just decided to cut off the child's head, crack the skull open, and eat his brains. Yeah, it's pretty gruesome. Terrific crimes, and I guess the connection to them, the FBI was called in because they had no idea who had done this. The police somehow came up with a sketch of Richard, I guess just based on what they think he would look like. But with this sketch that they came up with, it actually was posted, and Nancy Holden, who had gone to school with Richard, recognized him right away, and also had seen him a little bit before this had happened, and she said that his appearance had just, gone to shit. He looked awful. He was wearing an orange parka, and she said that he was asking her for a ride. Luckily, she was kind of creeped out by him, so she said no, and that was the last time she had saw him, but she was able to identify him, which eventually led to his arrest. So after the police got the tip that it could be Richard, they did a background check and saw that the gun registered him was the same gun used in the killings. So they showed up to his apartment. He refused to speak to them. So the police actually just waited outside in the hallway for him until he came out. And when he did, he came out carrying a box and was covered in blood. When they asked why he was covered in blood, all he said was he had been killing a bunch of dogs. And then he was arrested, and during the search through his apartment, they found items that belonged to some of the victims, such as Danny Meredith's wallet, and in the fridge they discovered David's brains and other body parts wrapped in saran wrap, along with the blender that he used to make his blood smoothies with, and diagrams like showing different parts of the body. So and also like the walls were just like drenched in blood. Like, I don't know what the fuck he was doing, just like rubbing blood all over the walls. Just quick side note real quick, so back in the day, I don't know what this, it just reminded me of this, but I used to work at an adult video store, and this one man, who actually later found out was a doctor, used to go into the little private booths. There was like the little wank rooms in there, but instead of just being like, well, first of all, it's weird to just like drive to a store to go into a room and jack off. Anyways, this guy would just take it to a whole new level, and we finally caught him because at first we didn't know who it was, and then we caught him, and my boss at the time was this giant ass fucking cholo. But this guy, who was a doctor, would go into these rooms and he would shit in there. Like, there was no toilet in there, it was just a bench and a TV, and he would take a shit and then he would grab it and like smear it and rub it all over the walls and the screen and everywhere. And there was a janitor there, luckily, and the poor janitor always had to fucking clean up this disgusting mess. But one time we found out it was him, and my big cholo manager decided to wait outside the door for him. So when he was finished, he opened the door, and right away he could smell the shit when he opened the door, and he pushed this guy back into the fucking room and threw a rag at him and told him he better fucking clean up this mess. And of course he was intimidated by this guy. This guy was huge, and after he cleaned up his disgusting filth, they kicked him out and banned him, which we were all thankful for. Anyways, back to the story. And on January 2nd of 1979, Richard's trial begun, and he did try to plead for insanity, and of course that luckily got thrown out the window. So on May 8th of 1979, it only took the jury 5 hours to come up with their verdict, or whatever you call it, and Richard was charged with first-degree murder on all 6 counts and was sentenced to death by the gas chamber. So like I said, Richard was just under the impression that these Nazi UFO teams were together trying to poison him and kill him, and he did say in court that the reason why he ate people was because he was poisoned by these Nazi UFO people, and that his blood was being turned to powder and his heart was shrinking. And the way he found that out, because back then if you had like bar soaps to wash your hands, he said that if you had your bar soap there and you picked it up and it was dry underneath, that you were fine. But if it was like sticky and mucky, that was the poison that the Nazis had planted there. And if that was the case, from when I was a kid, I remember that's what the fucking soap always turned into when you left it down on the soap dish for a long time because it was wet. So why he came up with that, who fucking knows? But you know, thing Richard tried to say was, like, he said he was Jewish even though he wasn't, but he said that's the reason why these Nazi UFO people were after him, and that because he was marked with the Star of David on his forehead, which he wasn't, that's why these Nazis decided to poison him, and the only reason to stop his blood from turning to powder was to drink the blood of others, and that he requested that these people were to be found and also charged for the murders that he committed. Also was, I guess, saving his food from the prison, so during like one of his interviews, he dug into his pockets and handed the FBI agents macaroni that he had saved, and that he was saying that the prison guards were working with these Nazis to poison him, so he gave it to them to analyze to check for poison. And allegedly too, this guy was so fucking insane that the other inmates were terrified of him, that they were convincing him to kill himself because they just did not want to be around him anymore. Imagine being that fucking insane that you're locked up with other like murderers, gang members, criminals, and other fucking people that committed violent acts, that you creeped them out so much that they didn't want to be around you. Like, wow. So these guys, like I said, the only way they could get rid of him was that they were talking to him and telling him to kill himself, like they really were trying to convince him to. Eventually he took their advice, and he was being given like medication while he was in there, but he was saving it up. I believe it was like an anxiety medication, so he saved enough so that he could take it all at once and kill himself. And on December 30th of 1980, Richard Chase was found dead of an overdose in his jail cell. So, and that was the end of the Vampire Sacramento, Richard Chase. Now, like I said, I came across the story last night and I was just like taken by it. I was just like, wow, what the fuck? You know, like I have never heard of this guy, and apparently like he is the one that like kind of because of what he did, like all the therapists and people who worked with them, they said supposedly this is where like the term serial killer was originated from. But to think like this guy is so fucking sick, so bizarre, and I've never heard of him. Like I used to have so many books about serial killers, and I had never ever heard of him until last night. But that was today's case. So hopefully if you guys stuck around for this fucking horrific story, you guys found this interesting, you learned a little bit just like I did last night. And yeah. What can I say? I mean, that was just a crazy ass fucking story. I don't know what else to say after that. Let's try to lighten the mood up. Like I said, I really appreciate you guys being here. I'm so excited to see all my new subscribers. I love and appreciate all of you guys. If you want to hang out with me in between uploads, you can hang out with me Instagram, TikTok. I'll leave those tags down below. If you want to wear some terror merch, I do have some t-shirts on Spreadshirt, and I would greatly appreciate it if you guys were to check those out. And also, if you want to tip this witch, I'll leave my Cash App down below as well. But like I said, I'm so happy to be back after like my little unintentional break. Hopefully I'll be back next week if nothing crazy happens. I do have a lot of shows and stuff coming up, so usually when that happens I kind of get like overwhelmed and like I don't know, I try to film and then like I end up not liking the footage. But anyways, thank you guys for being here. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, share this video with other true crime interested people. I would greatly appreciate it. But like I would also appreciate so much more if you guys just subscribe to this channel and stick around. I have other cases I want to talk about and other videos, ideas I have, and we can just discuss it. But anyways, until the next time, this is Terror Krueger, and I'll see you ghouls later. Bye.